Welcome to Roll for Crit as we take a drive, make a left, go down the road for 2.5 miles, find some decent parking, and head into the Meeple Gallery for April.
It's great. I love those directions. Mm-hmm. GPS always gets us there on time. That's right. We're reading your viewer comments from that comment section down below, possibly even other avenues like Twitter, what have you. We'll find out on all sorts of different topics from our past videos for the month. Let's get into it. First, we were discussing Legendary because we always are discussing Legendary.
Always.
And there was a whole slate of new releases that we found out about from Gamma coming this year. And talking about what maybe would be the future of this game. Is it time for them to close it off or introduce more things? Space Boy Zero has a suggestion. Says maybe some updated characters in Legendary, like characters they've already made, but with them updated with new abilities. I thought that was an interesting idea, like going back and saying, taking whatever Captain America or whoever from the original set, maybe that's a bad example, and saying this character isn't as strong anymore from what we've released later, so we're going to update them. What do you think about that?
Well, I think partly this is you just not liking how Spider-Man works.
No, don't try to throw me under the bus like that.
The only reason why I'm a little on it, for example, Captain America, he already has 4 different groups. Wolverine, I think, has 3.
You mean literally of Captain America?
Yeah. Spider-Man, I know, has like 4.
Yeah. But I think that's not true for most of the characters in the base set.
Like maybe I don't know how many are that weak. I know there's some I don't like. It'd be nice to have certain keywords thrown in there.
Throw in keywords or maybe update. Maybe they introduced a new team or something that could go on it later. I would just say artwork, because one thing the base set was all of the cards had the same artwork. So it'd be nice if they actually had new designs on them, if nothing else. CMON announced that they are going to be doing their distribution through Asmodee in North America, and we're talking about the possible ramifications of that change. The Gaming Dragons has an interesting perspective on this. Says, we are in Puerto Rico, and many retailers refuse to work with Alliance Games, who Asmodee exclusively works through, due to the merchandise taking around 3 weeks to arrive to stores, while all the other distributors get the merchandise in 2 to 4 days. CMON joining Asmodee is a big hit for the gaming stores in Puerto Rico. And that's something, like a lot of times we're in the U.S., so we don't, the continental U.S., that we don't think about the ramifications for larger populations.
Technically, U.S. is more than continental. Yes.
Right.
I do imagine this comment, because it's Gaming Dragons, so it's like Tiamat and 5 heads talking at once.
I think so. I think maybe that's the name of their store. Possibly.
That would be a good name for a store.
Guess. Yeah.
No, I cannot completely understand. It's really hard when if something goes only through one distributor and that distributor isn't working well for you because you don't agree with them, or they maybe don't even reach where you are, or very hard, as was said there. It's a big hit. It's a big issue.
Yeah. So nothing we can do about it, unfortunately. What if we could? But hopefully, good luck to you. Hopefully.
You can't press the fix button?
Okay, let's be honest, I could. But I'm not going to. We reviewed the game Cryptid, which is a game where we were trying to solve a puzzle of where exactly this mysterious creature's habitat is on a map. Kind of an abstract puzzle game. People had thoughts about it. Tim Teagan said, I'm a big fan of this game and the parts of my brain that it causes to hurt. I'm just so bad at it. My daughter dances logic circles around my dull, drooling self and has the whole thing figured out by the time I'm narrowing it down to a broader area. It's a bit humiliating, but I just can't stay away. Raphaelis13 says, I quite liked this game, though it grinded my brain more than I expected. When I played it, a fellow player placed 2 wrong pieces, fixing one, but keeping quiet about the second one out of embarrassment. The game has that inherent fragility. So it sounds like some people are, like me, stupid and have trouble with
but I think, first off, the wrong piece one, I think that's not the game's fault. You could easily do that in any other
I don't think any of this is the game's fault. I think it's just...
No, I meant for that particular situation. And yeah, it's, as you say, if it really racks your brain. And it still racked mine. I just know because the first one, I got one win.
Well, it was funny. I feel like when we played with a friend of ours, I felt like we were all pretty much on the same level. And then I played with 2 other friends of ours like a few weeks later, and I felt like they were light years ahead of me, that they had figured it out, and I was still sitting there like, I don't know. So maybe it depends on your groups. I need to play with them. Yeah, see how that goes.
Same feeling. While it does rack your brain, the thing is, it's sort of in the best way. Like one of our misses was that it didn't really have anything to do with like the Cryptid.
The theme wasn't very strong.
But it takes away all the bells and whistles. So it's not like playing a 4-hour space game where you're like you're burnt out strategy wise.
Right.
You know, it sort of compacts it, which I think probably helps at least in that you get the pain, but in a short period.
Yeah, you get a little burst.
Yeah,
and your brain gets its exercise, then you can take a nap.
Don't say nap. I could use that.
Okay, go ahead. It's fine. We interviewed Ignacy Cevicek. It was really great designer. You can find that interview on our channel. And some people thought things about it, and they posted them.
Oh, things.
LJ Play said, absolutely love hearing that Portal is forging ahead and fully supporting the Alexa/home rules integration. Rulebooks are archaic as a learning device, no matter how well they're written. The sooner we can get to having Alexa/home support learning, play, and rules reference, the sooner we expand this hobby to the masses. This is one of the things Portal's working on, where you can ask your Google or Amazon or whatever device a question about the rules, and it will tell you about it.
Now, I can't wait, though, to see the Alexa being used, and one person going like, Alexa, how does the Dragonfire card work in the game? And, it says something, and then the other person goes, whoa, but Alexa, if I use just back and forth just because they're filtering.
And then Alexa's like, shutting self down. By the way, apologies to everyone who has an Amazon Echo if we keep setting it off right now. But what do you think about the idea of the rule book being archaic? That seems maybe a bit strong to say this is I think we even talked about this in the episode, and we kind of were saying, I don't think it should ever go away, but it should be supplemented, but maybe some people think it should go away.
So some people, they need the book. That's going to be a lot more helpful. And the book's also really helpful if you really want to be like, hold on, I need to look up how this one interaction works, because it'll go through a long, it's wordy, but a step version of the main phase, and you can read it slowly to make sure how something works. But I think the Alexa is a fantastic tool in the belt of learning a game. If there's some simple question, especially how many times have we learned a game like, how does this work again? Alexa, what's our max hand size?
Right. Yeah, I think that's what it's really going to be great for, a game you already know, and you just can't remember those specific little things here and there as you're playing. For me, I usually prefer to read a book just because I can do it at my own pace, I feel like, whereas in a rules video, sometimes I'm like, I wish you had covered that more, or I wish you had not spent as much time on this because I get that already. I can kind of do it all myself in a book. So don't watch our videos is what I'm saying. They're bad. There's a new TV show coming out called Above Board, which is ostensibly one of the first board game themed TV shows. We weren't sure where it was going to end up yet. Some people had thoughts. Freddie Duran says, I would say it would still have to be YouTube based, just separate from all other gaming channels. I feel like the host from Take Your Chits would be a solid host as one of the hosts to have as a regular for Above Board. Raphael 13 said, Will hit the nail on the head. Amazon would be the best home for a show like that. Entertainment and a commercial for what they sell in one. So still no news as far as I know on where it's going to end up. That was not long ago, but either of those, I think, are potentially good homes. They announced the Die Hard board game. And it sounds interesting because one player is John McClane and everyone else is everyone else and playing against them. Kevy B says, the most interesting thing about the Die Hard game is them not using iconic imagery from the movie, or at the very least, a pic of the skyscraper. The image shown comes off as more of a Hitchcock poster, Vertigo with glass, but people familiar with the movie will still know the reference. Still, has one versus all ever worked? And following up on that same idea, Kareem Thalgard said, another cool option for Die Hard to get around the fact that everyone wants to be the hero could be to make it a fully co-op, where just like in Solomon Kane, everyone influences John McClane's plans.
So isn't the Planet of the Apes game like that?
There is a Planet of the Apes game as well, where everyone is controlling Charlton Heston's character. And yeah, it's sort of a similar idea.
And to go back to the first one, definitely, the box art, love it. The minis, however, I don't know if you've seen them. Because since then, I think
can't
there's some
remember.
pictures.
No,
they look like Munchkin-esque, almost like smaller than what I expect for.
Maybe that's an artistic choice with the way the board looks. I don't know.
I mean, I don't remember seeing as much of the board piece and stuff, but I remember looking at the minis, I'm like, really? Okay.
But that box art is definitely cool. Yeah, I think one versus all has worked. Maybe not. It's maybe never. I think I would probably always rather have full co-op than one versus all. But I think in the right environment, in the right mood, it can be done well. Here's a bunch of things about the different Kickstarters we talked about from Kickstarter over the month. First, another one from Kevy B, who corrects me because there's a game called Gartenbau, which I incorrectly repeatedly admittedly called Gartenbrau. And he says, Gartenbau is German for horticulture because not everything is about beer, Jonathan. Yeah, browse. I'm thinking about, Oktoberfest.
Yeah,
I'm getting ready.
No, Jonathan, some of it's about growing the plants to make the beer.
Exactly. Hoser40K says, appreciate your picks. I did watch the Shut Up and Sit Down Clock Tower video. This is their review for Blood on the Clock Tower. The game looks great, but there's no way I'd be able to get that many friends together often enough to make it worth the purchase. Yeah, it's a tough one for those types of games. There's always a struggle there. Luke L asks, have you guys played Folklore? There's an expansion for it that just popped up on Kickstarter. I guess it's supposed to be another one of those RPGs in a box. I'm curious about it, but it'd be expensive to jump in at this point. There's a pledge level with standees instead of minis, which I appreciate, but it would still be over $200 with shipping to get the base game and all expansions, so I'll probably have to skip it. We haven't played Folklore, seen a little bit about it. I know we played a different game from that company, but $200 is a lot.
It is.
And I would suggest that no one ever pay that much for any game.
As Jonathan keeps looking back at me for my Cthulhu War purchases.
Oh, yeah, you should be ashamed of yourself. Kareem Thalgard says, I just backed Movie Empire and Historical Metal Coins Second Wave for use in the Awful Orphanage. I love the idea of Endangered. That was another game that we talked about where you are protecting endangered animals. But the board and components look so bland. I don't remember them looking super bland, but maybe they did.
There was only one animal, and it was just a picture of a tiger pieces. The board was just a generic, looks like, I think, a forest area. So I can see where they're coming from a little bit. It wasn't like a whole different map and you had to try, I think, like, this is a water creature, so maybe that could be part of it.
The Bear says, backed Dungeonology. I love dungeon crawls, but I have so many now that I wasn't going to back this one until I found out how different it was. Now, that's one you were interested in, too. Adil Garasu asked, no Anachrony coverage? Was curious what you guys thought. Yeah, that was, there was an expansion for it, and we never played the original, so it just didn't cross our paths, but it seemed cool. It's like a sci-fi, you put guys out and you get stuff kind of a game.
Worker placement?
Possibly? I don't know. I think that describes every board game ever. You put guys out and get stuff. And Chad Stilson says, so I basically bought the Terraforming Mars player boards, and I'm looking at the expansion as the promo. As for the new Turmoil Kickstarter, which includes these nice player boards, which reason enough to back it for anyone. From our emails, Brandon has a question about Kickstarter. He says, it has been announced a second season is coming in June for Batman Gotham City Chronicles. Just curious what your thoughts were on this, as it looks like lots of opinions in the comments on it being too soon as the first one hasn't shipped yet. Now, we did look into this a little bit, and we found that since this email has come, it looks like some of those are starting to get
As of this recording.
Yes.
That people have been receiving them. An update, I think it depends on what area you're from, too. Most of them, I think, sound like they're from continental U.S.
Mm-hmm. So that's good.
Yeah, and season 2 from, I think it was June 4th.
Is going to launch June 4th, right.
So it's right now the end of April, and by then, well, that's a whole month. I think that probably a large portion of the Batman, assuming that what I read seemed right, will be in people's hands, so people will be able enough to test it and then yell or not whether it's worth season 2, and of course, excluding the early bird purchases, that even though it's June 4th, that's another probably month you still have to back that.
Right.
So hopefully that has solved itself.
Yeah, go check out our channel elsewhere and you'll find the video that we did more in depth about this similar kind of things with Kickstarter, so you can hear more about that. Another game with crypt in the title, we reviewed Decrypto, which is the team-based word-guessing game from Yellow Games. Refresh Damon says, I enjoyed this game, but did play once with a player with severe analysis paralysis, which led to an over 90-minute game. So you might need to implement the timer if you know you're playing with players with AP. Yeah, that's why I actually think the developers commented on that saying, yeah, we included a timer in the box for this reason.
For for that player, you should buy them a necklace that has a timer on it. So no matter what game you play, you can just flip it for them.
That sounds great. They should make that. Passive-aggressive gifts for your board game friends. We reviewed the Chronicles of Crime Noir expansion. And we had different feelings about the different cases that are included in that. And the designer of those cases wrote in and commented, Stefan Anquetil, if I'm saying that name correctly. He says, my favorite case is the third one because of the mix of complexity and historic accuracy. But the last one was really fun to write. Well, I write in French, so I don't check all the translations. I first did use a permanent secretary, but David does not want to have permanent characters, so blame him. Thanks for the feedback. That was one of our things. That was my stupid nitpick where I said, oh, I wish you just had the same secretary between cases because the characters are usually all random. So it's good to know that I'm not alone. The designer of the cases agrees with me. But yeah, I think the third and the fourth, those were our favorites. We also reviewed Exceed, which is a new, it's not new anymore, but they just had a new Street Fighter edition from Level 99 fighting card game. I thought this was interesting. Refresh Damon again says, I played both BattleCon and Exceed, and while I enjoyed them all right, I always ended up wondering why I was playing a card game instead of just turning on my console and playing the games they are inspired by.
The reason why you play this instead of turn on your game system is because for me personally, and probably many others, we have a chance to win.
You don't, the card game does not require dexterity, right? You can take your time.
I don't like those fighting games. I'm not good at them at all. I'm much better with the card game.
Combos are hard. I think the other thing is it's kind of a compliment to Exceed, because to say that it's so close to the video game that you'd almost rather just play the video game, I think that's what they're going for. They're really trying to simulate that almost one-to-one in a card game format. We briefly talked about the WizKids Dungeons & Dragons games because they had a new one released recently, the Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and I had said how I never hear anyone talk about those games, so some people chimed in. Jason Olson said, I love my Tomb of Annihilation, so this Mad Mage has been on my radar since I first heard about it a few months back. And guess what? Triple threat. Third time making it in. Refresh Damon says, I think the D&D adventure games are decent enough co-op board games, and the minis per dollar ratio is quite good. So you can have the purchase serve double duty for your RPG needs too. So I think we kind of said that. It's like maybe people are just buying these for the minis. If you play a lot of Dungeons & Dragons.
I never heard that phrase, I think, before, but now I love it.
Which one?
Mini to dollar ratio.
Mini to dollar ratio. Yeah, I wonder how like CMON games stack up to that ratio, or other big Kickstarter projects.
We should now rate each company on their average mini to dollar ratio of games.
Ticket to Ride London got announced. It's a brand new version of Ticket to Ride where you're in London. You're using buses instead of trains. E.H. Engel, or Angle, if you want to say it that way, had a suggestion because we had talked about what might the next thing be and what kind of vehicle might they use for the next city. He said Ticket to Ride Amsterdam with bikes and boats.
I think I mentioned India, but we could do boats in what's the Italian city that?
Oh, Venice?
Venice, thank you.
Oh, gondolas? Yeah, that's a good one. That'd be good. biggest thing that we had that people had thoughts about was the Golden Geek Award winners.
Right.
For the 13th annual Golden Geek Awards. Here's what everyone had to say. Mr. Travolta7 says, I played Root, Brass Birmingham, and Architects. My favorite is Architects. Then, not by far, Brass and Root in last place, but still enjoyable. Justin Phillips said, no one will be playing The Mind in 2 years. No way it has any staying power. However, Flavio Sousa says, I'm glad The Mind won. It is brilliant and one of the very few truly original games to come out in years. Daniel Kame says, playing The Mind with more than 4 actually works and is ridiculously fun. The best party game win was obvious to me. So it seems the debate continues. Some people love The Mind, absolutely. Some people hate it. I think we're right in the middle. Rico Cordova said, best game of 2018 for me was Coimbra, followed very closely by Brass Birmingham. It's crunchy, and I can understand why you may not think you'd enjoy it. He's speaking to us now. I found your comment about usually enjoying a Euro once you've played it to be interesting. In life, I've found people rarely enjoy something when they aren't skilled doing it. I've also found that if you can push yourself beyond the hump, you will almost certainly enjoy just about everything you are skilled doing. I.e., even if you think you don't enjoy basketball, if you practice long enough, you will get good, then you will enjoy it. I believe this phenomena is adjacent to your statement. I think it's the learning curve necessary for Euros that pushes people away. Once they understand the puzzle and are good thinking that way, it's fun. What do you think about that? Do you think that has anything to do with their...
There could in some things, but at the same time, the energy it takes sometimes to put in to learn that, and what I get out of it, I can put in maybe a quarter of that into another game and get the same enjoyment out of it.
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that we play so many games, and I think makes a lot more sense for someone who, if you're a normal person, you only get like maybe a new game a month or every few months, and so it's more rewarding because you're going to play that game more, and the more in-depth you get with it, the better you'll feel about it. Whereas for us, it's like, well, we're going to play it a handful of times, maybe review it, and then probably that's it. So it feels like the effort put in to learn it isn't worth it, maybe. I don't know. It's interesting food for thought. Kevy B says, you guys almost touched on the biggest problem with these awards. Unlike, say, the Oscars, which are allegedly about quality, these awards are solely about popularity, which is fine as far as that goes, but we don't really need Board Game Geek Awards since we can just look at the ratings list to figure out what's popular, since their algorithm already punishes games that aren't popular. As a board game site that supposedly celebrates games, I'd like them to find some way to award games that didn't sell that well, but were really well liked by those that actually bought them. Then maybe instead of Root and the Mind making even more money, maybe they could help deserving games like Cryptid or Spy Club sell more copies. I wonder, honestly, how much impact these awards do have on sales. Because I feel like, unlike Spiel des Jahres, a much smaller amount of people actually are aware of them.
They probably don't, because everyone is already talking about Root. But as you said, what about those that aren't talking about it? All of a sudden you see Golden Geek Award for this game, and everyone's like, what's that?
I guess because they could put that on their box cover, and that would definitely boost sales when people see it on the shelf or something like that. But yeah, maybe they should almost have a...
How would you do it?
I was gonna say maybe that like just a different category that's like... Or maybe they do. Maybe you have kind of the equivalent of like the Independent Spirit Awards for movies, where you just talk about indie games. But it is kind of nice that you have them all competing together.
It's best game that didn't appear in Board Game's Hot 20.
Right, underrated. But and also like even saying indie game now feels pointless because with Kickstarter, almost like most of the biggest games are indie games. Like Gloomhaven technically is like an independent game. Finishing up on a couple of announcements from CMON that they had for games adapted from video games. First, God of War, the card game. We didn't know what Norns were, but then you looked it up, and we weren't sure if they had mentioned it, if they were mentioned in God of War. Well, Occams5 on Twitter actually tweeted at us and posted a video clip where there's a brief section where Atreus offhandedly mentions the Norns as the Fates. So there was a little Easter egg in there. And by the way, having looked into the details, the story of that card game, it sounds to me like maybe it's more following the plot of the next God of War game. Like they may have gotten a little bit of a taste of what the sequel's going to be, and maybe that's what that game's going to be like. Jake the Snake says, it seems pretty fun. I kind of wish, though, that they went all out and there were actual figures like a more traditional style board game. Even if it was more expensive, I'd get it for like $50. Well, it wouldn't be $50, my friend. It would be $100.
This one's probably going to be like $40, I'm guessing.
Well, the card game, yeah. But like we said, based on the Bloodborne trajectory, I would be shocked if in a year or two we didn't see a God of War board game from CMON. It just seems like the natural progression.
They might save that for after the
next, to tie in with the next release, next video game. Yeah, that's possible. And then they also announced the Bloodborne board game. Well, they released a trailer for it, I should say. And that Kickstarter is probably up right now as you're watching this. Deborah Rapkins says, for me, the more I am immersed into a game, the better. For example, AR/VR, captivating lore, campaigns, minis. That's something we were talking about in terms of being more interested in the themes and the aesthetics of Bloodborne versus the mechanics of fighting and things like that. So for some people, that's what they're more interested in. And then once, I believe there was a small correction.
Yeah, there's a correction on, I made a mistake.
Lance Rager pointed out, Bloodborne is a Sony PS4 exclusive game, is not a PC, there's no PC version.
Yeah, that was my mistake. I think I mixed it up with some of the other.
I kind of took it as you were thinking of like it's sort of that crowd that likes the hardcore PC style games, but it is not.
Bloodborne is part of the Soul series, and definitely the Soul series as of late with the new Shadows Die Twice.
Sekiro.
Yeah, I was trying to avoid saying that, butchering that, but it's been seemingly used as sort of almost like a gauge to your gamerness, you know. So.
Yeah, well, we passed that test with flying colors.
Oh, no, I failed
miserably. You don't need to worry about us. I said we pass it, yes and me. And this one is a cry for help. Jordan sent us an email, said, hey there, I watch a lot of your guys' content and figured it couldn't hurt to ask. Do you or anyone you know have metal Seafall coins you'd like to sell? I'm desperately trying to find a set or two to use with our campaign. We're trying to help Jordan out. If anyone out there has a set of the metal Seafall coins, which I believe were a pre-order bonus, maybe they were available at conventions or on Board Game Geek Store. I don't know, I haven't looked into it, but I guess they're hard to find now. If you have one, let us know, and we'll talk to Jordan.
Yeah, he emailed us, so you can't just.
I'm not going to give out his email on the show. We'll make the arrangements if possible. We'll see if anything comes of that. Those are the comments that we have for this month. There were more. We couldn't get to all of them. There's always some really, really great ones. People write awesome stuff in our comments. So if we didn't get to yours, I apologize. But get in next time. Maybe you'll get in there 3 times like Refresh Damon did. We love to hear from you about any of the things we talked about in this video or anything else that you have a question about, just generally speaking in the world of board games, tabletop games. And on that note, we also like your feedback because if you haven't noticed, we have sort of under the radar sneakily been switching up the format of our vids lately. We are kind of moving away from our traditional news roundup, one video where we cover all the news, and more just splitting it up into smaller bites where we can delve more deeply into individual topics.
Also closer to when the news is announced.
Right, so try to be more topical, plus the new releases for the week having their own separate video, and maybe also more voiceover stuff because if we want to try to get it out as soon as possible, we're not always together on set. So we think it's going well. I think we're excited about seeing how this is. It's kind of an experiment, but let us know what you think if you have more suggestions, ideas, and we're still trying to do more stuff like, we've been doing the playthroughs of Aeon's End Legacy and more streaming, so hopefully more and more of that's going to come out sooner, and you can let us know how you feel about that too. We want to hear about it.
But until then, I'm Will.
I'm Jonathan.
And this has been the Meeple Gallery.
Hey, if you liked this video, then like this video and subscribe to our channel for more board game content.
Would you kindly do it now?